this is the one thing I say, this is one of my soapbox things. Hearing is a brain thing. The ear is just a conduit for sound, right?
Hmm.
And I don't want to mess with my brain, right? Like I want to make sure everything that's going in is everything's operating correctly.
Hi, welcome to Assistive Tech Today podcast. I'm your host, and today we have a special guest, a friend of the podcast, somebody I've known for a while, um, Alison Mendez. She is the territory sales manager for GN ReSound. And Alison, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, Alison, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do, and a little bit about your company?
Sure. So I started off in industry around 25 years ago. I started off as a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. I worked doing that as an itinerant teacher in New Jersey for around 6.5 years. I worked as an educational specialist on a cochlear implant team in one of the hospitals in Manhattan. And then I worked for Cochlear Americas, and I was a Baja specialist as well as a surgical specialist. And then I recently, for the past 9 years now, I've been with GN Resound, and I've been their territory manager, and I've been working in New York City and Northeast Pennsylvania.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
you worked in the hospital, in the actual operating rooms when you were doing the cochlear
I
work?
did. I
Yeah.
did.
So, guys, we always try and have interesting guests on the podcast to talk about many areas of assistive, technology. And I wanted Allison to come on for a while because she knows a lot about, the hearing systems that are available today, and she has some interesting information, to share with the viewers and listeners that would be maybe some people aren't aware of it. But I know with your company, with ReSound, we were talking a little bit before we started recording the podcast about some of the new advances or things that are available for inclusivity when you're out and about in the real world, like what you can do to access with the hearing devices that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just really great to know that the accessibility platform that we're going to talk about today is not only going to be for the deaf and hard of hearing community, but it's actually going to be for anyone that accesses electronic devices in this world. So it just so happened to start in our technology. So I think it's just really neat to kind of start off with where accessibility in the world of the deaf and hard of hearing population kind of started. And accessibility kind of started with T coils back in the 1930s. So I don't know if you're familiar with a T coil, but generally, and I can send you the symbol. So for your viewers, we can post it just to show them what the T coil symbol looks like. They can identify it in a public venue, but it's a blue symbol with an ear and it has a line with it in a T. And what that was an induction loop that was introduced in the 30s that you'd put into a public space, and it would be a loop that would go around the perimeter of an entire venue. So if you think about a synagogue, a church, how large the perimeter could be, it could take anywhere up to a week to install these induction loops, right? And then the technology of the T coil, we call it, is inside of the hearing aids. And how a person who is deaf and hard of hearing would access that induction loop would be that they're inside that venue, inside that induction loop, they're able to press a button and then access all the sound that's in there, transmitting maybe through a microphone on the podium,
Hmm.
or a microphone being passed around. Now it's been almost 100 years with this same accessibility platform, right? It's a long
Wow.
time.
Yeah. I didn't even think we had that back 100 years ago.
We have, yeah.
Mhm.
So the first T coil was put into a hearing aid in 1936, 1937. So yeah, so it's been around a really long time.
Wow.
So when we're looking at accessibility, like, all of us that are in hearing health for as long as we've been in, it's like this is like a real exciting time for us, right? Because this is a crossroads where we're now able to, well, actually, let me just say the other thing is that T coils have been wonderful. They've been wonderful, right? They provided the accessibility to all these venues. The thing is, a lot of times it costs 30, 50, $70,000 to place into a church, into a synagogue, right? And so it just sometimes becomes cost prohibitive.
Right.
So where are we now in 2026? We're now in the area of what we call Bluetooth low energy audio. Okay. But what I want to do is I just want to take a step back and look at how we got to from 1930 to 2026. So in 2013, our company, a couple of the manufacturers, went to the governing body for Bluetooth. It's called Bluetooth SIG. And they said to them, they said, listen, we're using Bluetooth low energy. We really, and it has data and audio in it. They're like, we don't want the data. It's slowing our audio down.
Right.
You get rid of the audio part and just the data part and just leave the audio for us. So it took from 2013 to 2020 for the creation of Bluetooth low energy audio. And then COVID happened.
Right.
And then, as we all know, it slowed everything down, right? And
Sure.
it also slowed down the ability for us to release this new platform. And so the platform wound up not being released until 2023. But what's really exciting, and again, you and I have gone to trade shows together, and you've heard me speak. It's been a couple years now
Right.
that
Yeah.
it's crazy because we are the first electronic medical device good that had AuraCast inside of it. Okay, so it's kind of like we've been talking about this, and everyone's like, "Well, where is it? Where is it?" Right? So for 2 years now, we've had it both in our Nexia and now in our Vivia product and our Enzo IA, which is for superpower. And so what that platform is giving is it's allowing accessibility, but to happen like this with just a plug and play model into an electronic good with an accessory that we have. Um, and the accessory is a very low cost accessory. So, for instance, this little TV stream, remember how I told you that an induction loop would take around maybe a week, depending on the size of the
Right.
venue, right? What
Hmm.
I've been doing is I've been going around the New York City metro area. I take this TV streamer, and GN produces this TV streamer, right? But it's a universal TV streamer, and I'll explain exactly how Bluetooth low energy audio works. But what I do is I take this TV streamer, I plug it into a mixing board or a soundboard into a venue, and accessibility happens just like that.
Instantaneous. That's awesome.
Correct. Right? So let's talk about how this works. So what this new accessibility platform is called is AuraCast. Okay. So for your viewers and for yourself, you're hearing it here first. But I will tell you now that you're hearing it here, you're going to start going places. You're going to say, oh, that's what Alison was talking about.
Right.
Right? Because if you're going to Australia, it's oh my gosh, why can't I think about the Sydney Opera House,
Hmm.
right? Some of our researchers went and helped them install it there. The Natural History Museum, they had me come in with my hearing aids to give it a test run. How they're going to be using it is it's not only going to be, again, for the deaf and hard of hearing community, they're going to have it connected. And all a person's going to do is just go into an app, push play, and they'll be able to access different languages. So
Wow.
in each exhibit, they're going to have 6 to 8 AuraCast transmitters transmitting different languages,
That's awesome.
right? So again, this is not just for the deaf and hard of hearing community. It's for everyone to access basically muted speech over an electronic radio wave or airwave. Okay. So for instance, if you and I go out to a bar, there's 5 TVs muted, we're watching football, we want to access that middle TV. Eventually, you and I will be able to take our cell phone, QR code right to that TV, and access the sound right into our AirPods.
That's awesome.
Okay. So I just want to give this sense of how it's going to
Yeah.
translate to the viewers as well as the community.
Just the fact that it can do different languages, even though, we say accessibility, we think of somebody that has special needs. No, if I come in and I'm from another country, I mean, the Museum of Natural History is a huge tourist spot. Somebody comes in, they speak Japanese and they aren't going to be able to understand anything. Pop that in, and now it's speaking in Japanese so they can understand it. So That's amazing, not just for the special needs community, but just for just for people in general.
Yeah, and it's just about accessing information more easily, having it more readily available, but doing it in a more cost-effective manner.
Right.
So what you're seeing at the airports, more of the international airports, you'll have the AuraCast transmitter will be plug and played into that speaker system. And so gate 110, if that's what your gate is, you just AuraCast into your gate 110 and you'll be able to hear the announcements, hey, they're boarding, or there's a delay. You'll be able to hear that gate no matter where you are in the airport.
That's great.
Revolutionary, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely game changing. It's funny it took almost 100 plus years to get to it, but
Right?
listen, better late than never. At least, like you said, this is an exciting time for technology, that the things that are coming out.
Absolutely. And I think when I love community theater. And so for me, a lot of times community theaters and stuff just do not have the ability to fund speakers and all of these, things. And so and also provide accessibility because they just don't have the funding.
Right.
And so
Absolutely.
we're going around and I call all of our audiologists in private practice or hearing aid dispensers in private practice. I call them the AuraCast ambassadors. So my private practices who dispense our hearing aids are going around with TV streamers, with multi mics to their local community venues and saying, hey, let me install this for you. And then if you have patients who want to access this technology, send them along, right? Because we just want everyone in the community to be able to have access to all types of activities and venues.
No, this is great. All good stuff. And guys, all the stuff that Allison is talking about during the podcast, we always will put links in the show notes so you can check these things out.
Yeah, and again, if anyone is interested in getting their hearing tested as well, right? Because they might have a family member who's wearing hearing aids right now and they're thinking about that. But it's really important for us to make sure that we're always managing and making sure that our hearing is okay. And I'm not sure if you've spoken about this on other podcasts or if anyone's ever spoken about this before on a podcast with you, but related to cognitive decline and hearing loss. And so is that something that you guys have spoken about
No,
or?
I mean, it's good that you're bringing it up. I have a mom, God bless, she's going to be 91, and her hearing is kind of not great. And I said, Mom, she's been dealing with other health issues. I said, get your hearing checked. I personally just think she needs to have her ears cleaned. But I was reading up about cognitive decline. I said, if you don't have good hearing, you can decline. And she's sharp for 91.
God
She's
bless her,
pretty
yeah.
sharp, God bless. But when you have conversations with her, sometimes if she's not looking at you, she asks you to repeat it because she can't hear you.
Right, right, right. And listen, it may just be wax. So if anyone that's listening is struggling, right, it may just be wax and you may just need your ears cleaned out.
Right. By a
But
professional.
absolutely, yeah. But going and getting tested because, we process our information here, but if we start to have overload where we're trying to hear the sound coming in and the input, right, and make
Mhm.
sense of it with a hearing loss, that's overload because you're hearing what's coming in, trying to figure out what someone's saying as well as understand what they're saying, right? The meaning of
Right.
it, and then respond. So then you don't only just keep processing information here. It starts to get processed here, and you don't want information processed here. And that's the overload part. And then that's where the cognitive decline and everything starts. So really just getting tested regularly is a good thing and getting your ears cleaned
Yep.
for sure. Um,
It's funny, my son over this beginning of the summer, he was having trouble. He was having trouble hearing. So I said, we went to the pediatrician. They looked in his ear and he said, oh, he's got, wax in his ear. So we went to a specialist. Obviously, they didn't want to do it. And they checked his hearing, they cleaned his ears. And he was like thanking the doctor. Oh my God. He's like, I can hear so great now. He was like, I have super hearing, like a bionic, for people old enough to remember the bionic woman, Lindsay Wagner.
yeah,
He's like, I got like bionic hearing because I can't believe how good I can hear. I said, see, there you go. I said, look at that little thing that luckily for him it was just the wax, but you get used to it. I think
right.
that's another thing. People, as it slowly progresses for something like that, or even if you just have hearing loss, people just it's assumed as the norm, and you don't really realize how much it's degraded.
Oh, sure, because it's not just like wax just doesn't appear. It's like it keeps on building,
A
right?
slow process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of times patients with hearing aids, um, the little ceru stops, the wax guards, that gets clogged with
I was going to
wax.
say they must be more susceptible, right, when you're wearing an internal hearing aid that you
Yep.
just got to get your ears checked.
What's great about the Vivia and Nexia technology is right here and here. There's two little holes. That's where you're able to, in at home, change your filters to maintain optimal hearing
Wow,
performance.
that's cool.
So yeah, and so just to kind of show everyone this is the options, because so this is RIC technology, receiver in the canal, meaning this goes over your ear, and then this little invisible fishing line
Goes
is
in,
just what it just it's going to hug right here. So when you're looking on at someone,
you
no
won't see
one
it.
can no. So these are the smallest rechargeable hearing aids on the market right now. And so, and they also have that AuraCast inside of them as well.
It's
Okay.
amazing the size of
Mhm.
that it has that.
And the one thing, Vin, that I absolutely love about I mean, there's a lot of things I love about my company, right? But the one thing that I really love about it, and one reason why I joined, is because their commitment to innovation and accessibility is at the forefront in everything that they do when they do innovate and create. So, what I wanted to show you is there's the different models. You'll have this is a behind the ear
Hmm.
model that you would use an ear mold. This is for a severe to profound patient,
Right.
right? This one can fit all different kinds of losses. And then someone might even have to have a lot of real estate behind their ear. Perhaps they wear oxygen masks. Perhaps they wear glasses, right?
Hmm.
Maybe they wear masks still for their immunocompromised.
Right.
This would be our in the ear
Inside.
model. Right. But all three of these models have the ability to be able to change your filters, which
Right.
will then always produce optimal hearing benefit.
Now, a question, Allison. You see the three different models you showed us. Can all of those cover all types of hearing loss, or are there some that if you have a really severe hearing loss that you might need, you only have so many options because of your severity or
Yeah. So, such a great question. So, prior to joining GN Resound, I worked for Cochlear Americas, Cochlear Americas being the cochlear implant company. And so in 2014, when I was working for Cochlear, they joined the Smart Alliance with GN Resound. And what that meant was that the cochlear implant company and the hearing aid company were going to share the 2.4 gigahertz wireless accessory technology. So all the connectivity that runs between the hearing aid and the cochlear implant, if someone has a hearing aid on one ear and a cochlear implant, it all runs through the accessories. Okay. So the reason why I'm saying this is because between GN Resound and Cochlear Americas, we are the only two hearing companies that together can treat every single kind of hearing loss that exists. From so for us, there may be a patient that only has one ear. That's okay. Maybe even a little bit of hearing loss. And this ear might be completely compromised, right? They might utilize a cross situation where on the side that's compromised, sound would still come into this microphone, but would transfer over to this ear, but make you feel like you're hearing from both sides. Okay.
Mhm.
So that we can treat one sided hearing loss. We can obviously treat the different severities and degrees of hearing loss with the technology I showed you. But then when hearing aids are not enough, when somebody's speech understanding drops below 60%, okay. So that's the other thing that I think is really important to keep in mind. Or so many people think like with a cochlear implant, you have to be completely deaf. That is not true. You have to just really struggle with hearing aids,
Mhm.
right? And so there's a candidacy criteria for that as well. And if a person needed a cochlear implant, there's that there's that technology. And cochlear even goes so far, and this is what I was saying, we can fit any kind of hearing loss, right?
Mhm.
Even if somebody didn't have an auditory nerve, cochlear has a brainstem implant that they would be able, right? So
Wow.
between the two companies, we can truly fit every type of loss. You can find a solution between the two
Wow.
companies.
I just want to mention this. We're not going to talk about his particular diagnosis because neither one of us know it. But I was
Oh,
talking before we started the podcast about one of my favorite musicians, Huey Lewis, who's been deaf. He was deaf in one ear for like almost 30 years and he was still
mhm.
able to perform, but he wound up losing hearing in his other ear. So I watched him on a podcast recently. He has a cochlear in one ear with an implant and
Yep,
he has a regular hearing aid in the other ear. So he's able to hear and everything. So
yep.
you know, pretty impressive that he's able to hear and everything again.
Absolutely. And so what we see is we see um, patients will go what we call bimodal, and bimodal meaning they'll wear the hearing aid on one side and the cochlear implant on the other side. For some patients, again, not knowing his hearing loss, he's obviously benefiting from that hearing aid side. If somebody has poor hearing in that hearing aid side, sometimes they wind up going for another cochlear implant.
Mhm.
So those are always options as well.
Right. So, I guess maybe give us like, I know you had given us examples a little bit with the low energy Bluetooth, but so I know you were saying like pretty much if you go almost anywhere, like especially big places like airports and things like that, or like theaters, like if I go to, say I go to like the like Lincoln Center, you were saying, right? They'll have stuff, they'll have that in there. So if somebody goes in, they want to sit down and they're watching a show, they'll be able to access the audio.
Yep. So in the next few years, I think there's going to be millions and millions more electronic goods that AuraCast will be in. For right now, it's very limited. And so you'll eventually be able to go onto Google Maps and type in AuraCast near me. And then everything that's registered with the FCC will show anyone that needs accessibility the AuraCast platform where it
Do
exists.
they do they have an app yet? Like for that, would be able to tell them. I'm sure
So
that'll come.
it's coming. Yep, yep. It's not like we're just get the other manufacturers are just starting to get on board. So it's really exciting to see the entire industry kind of
I
explode with this accessibility
I
platform. We need everyone, right? We need
right,
everyone
right.
to,
I
to get on.
remember when we first met about 2 years ago, you were telling me that this was coming, this was going to be a thing. You're like, it's done, but it's just going to start to be deployed, and you said it's going to be a huge deal. And now 2 years later, it's here. Are they doing that? I'm assuming, like you said, obviously, because it's pretty cost effective, more and more people will adapt it because it is cost effective. People want the accessibility when they're out. Are the TV manufacturers doing it? Like if you have a TV in your house, like will they eventually be doing? I'm assuming they'll be having the Auracast built right into the TVs.
One of my customers just bought an 80-inch screen TV for her office. So, and it's AuraCast ready. So that actually already has it inside of it.
Right,
So they don't need an intermediary because right now this is an intermediary,
right.
right?
The
This is
the
making
receiver, the receiver's built into the television.
correct. You got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, hey,
And
they're
so
supposed to be smart TVs.
yeah, and they're super smart now. Yeah.
Yeah,
So Samsung was the first manufacturer on board. They started around a year and a half ago. So I would say to your viewers, check your TV to see if it
right.
has that Bluetooth platform on it, and if it does, then you can access that Auracast.
That's cool.
And for people who are typical hearing, they can go on Amazon and you can type in Auracast earbuds, and they're like $70. And you'll be able to, you can buy those and access Oracast that way as well. And eventually, Apple will have their iPods Oracast enabled.
I was just going to ask you, is Apple, because I know they were toting about some of their more advanced AirPods had like some hearing aid capability, and I was wondering if they were on board. But I've read many discussions about that where people are like they still aren't going to replace a professional hearing aid. Last My last podcast with a good friend of mine, Dr. Ray Hype, we were talking about people can buy things online, devices, and they work okay, but they're not tailored for the user. They can work kind of mediocre, but it's not the same as something specifically designed like a true medical grade hearing aid.
That's such a great point that you bring up. And I think we can even loop it back to what we were even talking about before. What happens if it's just wax, right?
Hmm.
What happens if it's just wax? Someone decides to go to their, local big box store, buy something off the shelf, self program, but really it's just impacted wax that if they just went to the ENT and get
They
it
clean
taken
it right
out,
out. Right.
right? And
Hmm.
now, and so you really always want a hearing health professional to be monitoring. And then the other thing I will tell you, and I've been doing this a long time. I have no problem being in a grocery store and I see someone with, their ear mold hanging out or their dome hanging out with their receiver, right?
Hmm.
And I just told them, I'm like, let me just help you out and push that back in your ear for you. So more times than not, people don't necessarily know how to wear their hearing aids. They don't know how to maintain them. Um, and so really making sure that you're being monitored by a hearing health professional is super important.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
it's yeah, go to the professionals. That's what they're there for.
100%.
And like you
100%.
said, with somebody that with the wax, it would have just been, you wouldn't even need anything and just make sure you get everything checked out. And if it is, oh, okay, that's great. You don't need a hearing aid, but at least you got it checked out.
And again, I see a lot of people buying hearing aids online, having them programmed, over online without
Yeah.
going into
Yeah.
professional. And again, I mean, for some people that might work, right? Maybe they're limited mobility wise, being able to access a hearing health professional. So I understand that, but true best practice would be to go to an office and to actually be evaluated for treatment.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely,
This way you know exactly what you're dealing with. There's no guessworking.
absolutely. Because again, here I always this is the one thing I say. This is one of my soapbox things. Hearing is a brain thing. The ear is just a conduit for sound, right? And
Hmm.
I don't want to mess with my brain, right? Like I want to make sure everything that's going in is everything's operating correctly.
It's definitely like when you bring your car to the mechanic, just change the oil and filter, but my tires are falling off. You can't, that's not good. I mean, your car's or engine will be okay, but you won't be driving too far with the flat, four flat tires or
That's
getting
right.
an accident because your tire blew out. So yeah, you got to take care of everything.
100%. And then again, the wax filters we were talking about the wax filters and the hearing
Hmm.
aids get clogged up. There's just so many things that can go into it that I just think going to see it, there's just nothing like in-person interaction either, and
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So Allison, we're gonna be almost out of time, but is there anything before we leave that before we wrap this up, that any points that you wanted to share with the viewers and listeners?
So if there's anyone watching, no matter where they are in the country, in the world, we can link you up with a hearing health provider for either you or your family member if you wanted to experience AuraCast, or if you're a current hearing aid wearer and you're like, oh, I would love to bring this to my synagogue or my church or to my local community theater. I'm here. I love going out and doing demonstrations for different venues. It's my passion. And that is something that I would offer your viewers. Um, you know, more
Yeah.
than happy
Well,
to help. Yeah,
and Allison will get all the info from Allison to put in the show notes so that if you do want to reach out to Allison or, get in contact with her company, like she said, this way you get the professionals. And I've seen Allison work at trade shows and she's talked to people that had current hearing aids and they tried out some of the stuff that ReSound made and they were like, oh my God, it's like night and day. So she knows what she's talking about. She's been doing this for a few years, so to speak. So it's always good when you have a professional that's passionate about what they do and they're good at what they do.
thanks, Ben. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
so we appreciate that. So I think that's pretty much it. If there's anything, I think we've covered everything. If there's anything we didn't miss anything, I think we covered
I
pretty
think
much everything. Yeah.
I feel good. Yeah. Thanks so much for
So
having me. Really
no,
appreciate it.
I was glad we finally got this to connect. Allison and I were trying to do this for a while and we just our schedules just couldn't couldn't coincide. So finally we got it going. So guys, as I always say, this is another one in the books. I've been your host, Vinny Livoti for Assistive Tech Today podcast, and our gracious guest, Alison Mendez for GN ReSound. So, guys, we'll see you all on the next podcast. And thanks for tuning in and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys all on the next podcast. Take care, everyone. Allison, take care. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.